Hey there, fellows. Right here I've got me this lovely car. You'll recall that it took a long time to build, but here we are. And so we've run cars on a bunch of different stuff like kerosene, diesel fuel, white spirit, what else have we used? Anyway, lots of different liquids. And there was this one time when we tried running a carbureted car on vodka. There was also something else, but that didn't really work. We are talking a carbureted engine after all. Anyway, guys, I keep seeing people commenting asking we try pouring in some vodka. Right? And get over here, don't be shy. Okay, guys, so we've got us this, sorry, dude. This much vodka. And we've also bought this here kit for us to be able to run this car on vodka. But you're better off using ethanol if you're doing this properly, right? Correct. We're installing an ethanol injection system. And finally, we've got a car that we can use for these sorts of experiments. Uh-huh. And this car is just begging us to do this sort of modification to it. For the following reasons: intake air temperature is very high, EGT is quite high, and we need to bring those temperatures down. You reckon vodka can get the exhaust temperatures down? I do think so. It's all very simple, actually. It all boils down to some basic 7th grade physics. Alright, we've got everything prepared. So let's treat this engine to a bit of vodka. Let's do this. This is an older video originally uploaded in the summer of 2021. When choosing the brand of vodka, we decided this would be the best choice. We were looking for high-quality, well-filtered vodka to maximize horsepower gains and to keep the system nice and clean. So to kick things off, we've got this, oh, check that out. I also need a tune. While Vlad is uploading that tune, let's talk about the system, what it consists of. We have got this tank that you fill with the compound. We have the pump that will feed it to the engine. A bunch of wires, of course, this controller. That's the control module for the system. It's also running a sensor with a light that flashes for some reason. We have the injector, some hoses. Pump feeds the liquid from the tank. The injector sends the mixture into the intake that's located before the throttle body. As for why we need the water-ethanol mixture, it serves to cool the intake air down, that which mixes with the gasoline and combusts inside the cylinders. That's what these sorts of systems are designed to do. And if you're paying attention in physics class in 8th grade, and if not, well, do a Google search, what I'm getting at here is that when the water evaporates, it makes for a considerable cooling effect. It's going to significantly cool down the air-fuel mixture. Yeah, that would be the right way to describe it. When the water enters the cylinder together with the mixture, when it combusts, it pulls in a lot of the heat, while itself turning into steam. Though I should probably say that the water is already misty even when it's just coming out of the injector, which you will see for yourselves in due time. As for what sort of benefits this yields, first of all, we are increasing the horsepower, which is the result of any sort of alcohol having a higher octane rating than gasoline does. If I'm not mistaken, it would be about 105 or thereabouts for ethanol, and slightly higher for methanol. I think it's like 110, could even be slightly higher than that. And the really important thing is that the water vapors, the entire process that I just described, significantly reduces knock, which first of all is going to allow us to up the boost pressure, and second, make for more effective cooling of the combustion chamber, which is going to increase the longevity of the engine. Now, the main reason why these types of systems were invented in the first place is for the sole purpose of taking stress off of the engine, to keep it from overheating and just to make life easier for it. Also, we're reducing the risk of knock, which very well can occur. Granted, the engine is well tuned and broken in, but the intake air temperature is still very high, as is the EGT. Yeah, the exhaust gases are getting pretty hot. I am hoping this entire system is going to help us out with that, and that we'll see some numbers that will help us determine how effective it actually is. And the reason we've decided to run this system on vodka in particular is that, first off, it's just easier to come by than methanol. I mean, you can't really even buy it anywhere. Maybe at some chemical plant, I don't know, perhaps you can get some at one of those. But then it's a very hazardous and poisonous substance. I wouldn't even want to breathe in the vapors while dealing with it. But vodka is sold in stores, it's pure. It's not going to contaminate the system or otherwise compromise its functionality. Now we just need to take all of this stuff. Again, it's a very simple system. We shouldn't have any issues installing it. I don't see it taking longer than just a couple of hours. Okay, let's get to work. We're going to situate the bulk of it right here. The tank and the pump. It's actually quite a hefty pump, by the way. I'd say it weighs about 1.5 kilos. But yeah, we'll install this in the cargo bay, and filling the system up should be safe and easy. We can't put this inside the cabin, because racing regulations prohibit flammable materials inside the cabin. Even on this tank it says you can only use a mixture containing no more than 50% methanol or ethanol. Also, I think the regulations don't allow you to use anything with a concentration of above 60%, because it becomes very flammable, and the way this stuff burns is actually pretty terrifying. You cannot see the flames, but you have the extremely high temperatures as well as the vapors. Anyway, now we need to figure out where to mount the tank. I guess we place it around the rear parcel shelf? Okay, let's get to work. Alright, the system is installed. It only took us half a day to do that. Here we have the controller, essentially the ECU. And on it, we see a couple of knobs. The first one is for adjusting at what point does the vodka injection start to work. You're dialing in a percentage. So basically, this dial is wired to a fuel injector. Said fuel injector sends a pulse. This works out the duty cycle percentage. And that's what this dial is for adjusting, within a range of 0 to 100%. In other words, we turn the dial to 50%, and the vodka injection system is going to activate once this senses that the duty cycle is at 50%. And we also have a second dial. This one is for adjusting the mixture quantity, the amount of vodka that's going to be fed into the engine. We're at the point where everything switches on. It runs a self-diagnosis, and we have our first error, for low fuel level. Okay, let's go fill the tank then, shall we? Let's pour this into the tank, which we found a good spot for right here. Excellent. Okay, so for starters, I'd say... Can somebody get me another bottle? It looks fairly small, but once you start pouring in the vodka, all of a sudden it becomes huge. It is a bit of a waste, but it's all in the name of motorsports, as well as preserving the engine. On the intake tube, we are now running a nut that we kept about 15 to 20 centimeters away from the throttle body, as recommended by the manufacturer. We can now screw the injector into it, which is going to feed in the mixture. There we go, and now we want to do a check to see how this is going to work, in terms of the mist that the system is going to produce. I need help, Vlad. Fire it up. Not doing anything so far. Okay, it's starting to... It works, great. Can you dial it back a tiny bit? This is what it's going to be doing once it's fitted to the intake pipe. So yeah. This is a very unusual thing to behold, because you see it's creating a mist, and it kind of looks like snowfall, actually. Inside this injector, you've got this sort of turbine wheel, And the whole point of that is it spins and creates this sort of vortex. You know what? This is some pretty good vodka. No unpleasant odor. We can't do any testing at idle, but why would we anyway? And so what we're going to do is fit the injector, tidy up all of the hoses and wires, and go try this out at some racetrack. I think we'll be able to determine the efficacy of this system by measuring changes in the exhaust temperatures, and also we should see a reduction in the intake air temperatures. And we'll be able to monitor all of that using a laptop, as our VEMS ECU allows you to keep track of all of those parameters in real time. But this is going well so far. Let's finish the job and do some testing. So we're at the Kuzbass racetrack. As always, thanks to the guys for letting us use it. And the weather conditions are not ideal. With these cool temperatures, plus it's windy outside, temperature is around 15 to 17 centigrade. Wouldn't put too much stress on the car, but I still think that we can get it warm enough to evaluate how well the vodka is going to work. So here's what we have in mind for this experiment. Right here I've got me a laptop. And we're going to be running software called VEMS Tune, which is going to allow tracking engine temperature down to the degree. The crucial parameters that we're going to be keeping track of, first of all, that would be intake air temperature and how it changes. We've got a sensor fitted to the intake manifold at the very top right after the throttle body. And on top of that, we'll be keeping track of exhaust temperatures. We want to see how the temperature changes after we administer the mix of ethanol and water into the engine. Once it starts altering the combustion process, theoretically the EGT reading should go down. The sensor itself is situated on the exhaust manifold. Oh wait, actually it's located on the downpipe, right after the turbo. We're going to be conducting tests at a certain temperature. For example, the car is now somewhat warmed up, engine is at 80 Celsius. So first we do a run with the car sort of cool and without the vodka injection. Then we bring the vodka injection in to see how that affects the running parameters. Prior to that, for consistency, we'll allow the car to cool. The weather has been stable so far, no changes to report. And I even think we should keep tire pressure about the same so that the data is consistent, to make sure we're seeing honest numbers. Now it's a matter of pouring some vodka into the tank, and yeah, the hatch does require a bit of work. You want some? If you're able to catch some, you're not the first people to ask us. Fill the tank to the brim, because we don't know how much this is going to use. Though we do have a light that will tell us when it's about to run out. That's 1, 2, last one. This is going well. Actual sound. That sound, as if I poured it into my own mouth. We're ready to go. The parameters, first one is intake air temperature. This gauge. It's currently at 58 degrees, and that changes when you hit the gas. Once the engine is under load and the turbo starts to generate positive boost, that's when the temperature will start to rapidly increase. On top of that, we have the exhaust temperature, 284 degrees currently with the car somewhat cool. Coolant temperature is around 75 degrees Celsius. Yeah, the gauges in the cluster are giving us the correct ratings. And here we go. We'll do a couple of laps to feel things out, and then we'll have another go with the vodka injection activated. That was good. What's the intake temperature? 61 degrees. I just saw 64. What about the EGT? 570. That's actually pretty good. The car barely even got warm after a lap. I say we go for another lap straight away to see how the car feels now that we're at operating temps. This rocks. Excellent. I don't know anything about the readings, but the car feels great. Right, let's have a look. 42 degrees. The exhaust temperature has gotten up to 700, but the intake air is at 42, which is pretty good. Coolant temp is on the rise. It's already at 103. This is the second consecutive run, and that's the best that the Supra can do so far in these conditions. The cooling system architecture is pretty good, but still leaves a bit to be desired. The numbers are pretty amazing, actually. The highest exhaust temperature reading that we saw was 700 degrees Celsius, 702 to be exact. And the intake temp topped out at 62. Ambient temperature is a crucial factor. When we were drifting back in our parking lot, well, perhaps the car didn't have enough room, didn't have enough air to breathe. But I'd say these are some pretty good readings. Based on my knowledge when it comes to engines and automobiles, things are going well so far. Now we allow the car to cool and do a run on the vodka. Intake temp is at 30 degrees, oh my. After that run, the exhaust temperature is at 480, but we need to do another lap just to make sure. As for the system, it is currently running at 55% of its capacity. 500cc injector running at 55% capacity, that's how much it's pumping in there. Alex, can you please keep track of the exhaust temps? It's very important. Yeah, EGT. Will it change or no? And here we go. Okay, what can you do? Those are my driving skills. But the intake temp is at 27-28 degrees. No, now there's a bit of rain. Still though, 29. But you hang on tight and let's do another run. What do we got? It's down to what now? Around 23, 24 degrees. 23, 24, amazing. Oh yeah, I can see it right here. Okay, there it is. The lowest the intake air temp has gotten to was 23 degrees. That's the limit, and that is just ridiculous. And the difference in EGT is pretty wild. Mind you, I was properly thrashing the car. It was at 650, right? Sounds about right. The engine was under quite a bit more stress. Otherwise, we'll need to get into some more thorough tuning to understand what's going on. I think we should check the fuel. So to recap, now that we've done a lap with vodka injection activated, well, the first lap went pretty well, but I wasn't really being too aggressive with my throttle inputs. But during the second lap, my foot was glued to the floor. We almost went sailing off the track at one point. But what's interesting is that I felt as if the acceleration had improved, which makes sense if you think about it. That's what's supposed to happen. After all, we effectively upped the fuel octane rating, the mixture became cooler, more of it was making it inside the cylinders. I think so anyway. But we've also identified a fairly serious issue in that the engine is easily hitting the boost cutoff. That's what appears to be happening. As for how that unfolds, basically you press on the gas, and it doesn't even matter if you're going straight or are in the middle of a drift. Long story short, the engine starts to shit itself and the car bogs down. I am honestly not an expert when it comes to engine management electronics, but something tells me that's the boost cutoff, because we are running some pretty impressive boost pressure. This is actually something you often encounter in the winter when even a completely unmodified car just doesn't want to accelerate. Engine hits a sort of rev limiter earlier than it should, but actually that's the boost cutoff in action. The air is cold, you have a highly concentrated mixture which overwhelms the factory ECU. We are running an aftermarket ECU, but it's only tuned up to a boost pressure of 0.4 bar. Optimal ambient temperature is somewhere around 25 degrees Celsius, and currently the outside temperature is quite cool. I'd say about 20 degrees, it's hard to tell with this wind. But it's about 20 degrees outside, as a result the engine is hitting a boost cutoff. With how cold the outside air is, this is how much of it you have. Volume is going to decrease as temperature rises. Our intake air temperature got up to about 40 degrees, even to 45 when we were drifting. But once we hit the button, once we turned the system on, the temperature dropped to 20 degrees. As for what this has done for us, well, we can up the horsepower without risking any damage to the engine. After all, at the bare minimum, it's going to be easier for it to breathe. Also, people have garnered plenty of experience in the sport, so it's a well-known fact at this point that water meth injection improves engine longevity, while allowing you to push the envelope when it comes to horsepower increases without any adverse effects. We are going to be tuning this engine in the near future and upping the horsepower. We might finally make it to a dyno, maybe even in an upcoming video where we'll find out how much power this Supra makes. I should also mention that water or water meth injection actually has a cleansing effect on the engine. You might have heard about hydrogen cleaning, which is something we've tried on this channel. Well, I'm referring to pretty much the same thing. Hopefully we never see any more carbon buildup inside the combustion chambers. Previously, the car did produce dark smoke upon startup. Hopefully it never does anymore, and the pistons just stay clean thanks to this system. Thanks for watching. From here we make our way straight to Krasnoyarsk, most likely. New video is out very soon. See you later.